Hello everyone, welcome to our presentation in the Java program for the admission department of Humber College for the Introduction to the Statistical Software Languages course. We are Eduardo Polo, Ahmed Mohamed, Nishika Somana, Havana Joshi, and Aditya Dabrase.
The approach that we took on this program or project was the team first decided to meet in person, and we discussed the objectives and the requirements for this program. And on the basis of the requirements, we decided to divide the codes among team members. Once these codes were worked out, we put them together and were able to build this program. And overall, the team was able to meet the requirements and come up with this program. To begin with the UML diagram, once the program has begun, it pops up an internal message which says welcome to Humber College, then asks the user to enter for password. So the user has 3 correct attempts to enter the password. If the password has been entered incorrectly all the 3 times, the system will automatically end the program. Once the correct password is entered, it moves to the second step and asks the user for the number of students. So this step as well has 3 correct attempts. If the number of students has been entered incorrectly all 3 times, again it will end the program. Once the correct number has been entered, it moves to the third step, which asks to type in each student name in the format last name and first name. And then in the next step, it prompts the user to type each student marks in the order math, science, language, drama, music, and biology. Once all this information is received, the system generates report on the basis of pre-fed reports in the system. So all the 4 types of report which have been pre-fed will display on the basis of the information collected. And the first report is student name and school. Second report is accepted students distribution. Third report is number of students that are not accepted, and the fourth report is average mark per course.
Now that you have seen the UML diagram, we are going to start with the IPO methodology. We have decided to show this part with different steps. Also specifying the input, the process that we are showing in the moment, and the expect output. For this part, the first step was the introductory message and the login. And what are the inputs? The user is going to enter the password. We have created a password method, a password check method that you are able to see in the right hand. And as you may see in this method, you have different in-text methods that allow us to evaluate all the different aspects that must be taken into account in order to decide whether a password is correct or not. Finally, in this method, the return statement will have a true or false response. So how it is translated into the main method? This is our main method. As you may see, first we decide to create the different integer variables with the maximum attempts for allowed, followed by a logit in boolean variable created with the value of false. And for evaluating the maximum attempts allowed, we created a while, which is going to be operating while the number of attempts is less than 3, and the person is not logging in, or the login is false. So the system will ask to introduce the password, and then with this line we are going to apply the method that we have explained before. And according to the string, we have different variables that are going to sum or to decrease. Finally, the main response is to have a true if the password is correct, or break if the maximum attempts are are used and you don't have any attempts left.
In the second step of the IPO methodology, we have discussed about the input for number of students. So the input number of students needs to be in between 1 and 50. So the program is very similar to that discussed in the previous slide for the passwords. We have done this in the main method, and um, it's similar in many ways. It's just that the restrictions are less for this part of the program. The number needs to be greater than 1, and it should be less than 50. So we have used a while loop to check if the number of students inputted by the user is right or wrong. And the user is also the user is given 3 attempts to introduce the right number. So if the user fails to enter the correct number of students by third attempt, the program will break. It will stop. So after validating the correct password and the number of students from the user, we can now move on to the third step of our IPO methodology, which is about the main body of our code. It's about It's about student information. So we have decided to um, break down this into different parts for ease of understanding, and to demonstrate our approach towards the problem. So in the first part, the input is student's name, and the process will be the student's matrix creation. As you can see towards the right, we have the screenshot of our code. It shows us that we how we created a 2D array with S names as its name, and we have used the variable from number of students to decide on the number of rows that the array will have, and the for loop will run continuously until the all of the students' names are being stored in the array.
In the second part, the user has to introduce the student scores. In this part of the process, we create a matrix. We select 6 columns because we have 6 courses to put the mark. We are going to locate each course result in different columns, such as in column 0, we enter the mark in math of the student, in column 1, science, and in column 2, language, and so on. And that's how we create the matrix which shows the all the marks of the student. Now to the third part, we need to make additional processes which helps in building the report. In first case, we create single array matrix called credit with all credit scores of subject and also the integer with the total credit, which was 22. Also, we create a two-dimensional array called credit score, which is now double of n student 6. The most important key part is that we use plus matrix method with general result matrix and credit as argument. The plus matrix method is a method for multiplying two metrics. In this case, we are going to multiply each score for the respective grade, and we are going to start the same location but in different metrics, which is the result. This is the matrix that is going to return once we apply the plus matrix method that the user have created. We created this plus matrix method because we need to have a method that almost multiply each score for the respective number of grades, and also because in this way we are going to have all the scores that we have to calculate GPA. To calculate the GPA, we also created a singular matrix called calculated GPA, which is a singular array with the number of students as size, and we created a method called GPA calculation. You can see that it requires 3 arguments. First one is double two-dimensional matrix called M3, second one integer T students, and third one integer credit, which is the last one. We are going to take all the results that plus matrix method gives and to summarize all the columns that each student has. Using this, we are going to calculate the GPA, and it is going to be the sum of all the results of multiple M matrix divided by the total number of grades. At the end, we are going to return the GPA, which is the matrix of the size, the number of students, and that's how we created the GPA.
So here we'll be going over how our program generates the reports. The first picture up top you can see is the main method, and here it outlines the 4 reports that are being used. 3 of them will be called the S names, and the last one is the general report, which will have the general information. So report 1 will be taking 2 columns in a double array. The first one has information on the student name, and the second one will has information on the student schools. So here, as we continue on, report 2 will take the S names from the first report, and here what we want to know is how many students were accepted into each individual school. As you can see, we initialize the count with 0 in engineering, business, and law. And for example, if somebody got accepted in engineering, our program will increase the engineering count by 1. And if somebody didn't get accepted into anyone, you'll see it'll go if, else if, else if, and then at the last one, if they didn't get accepted to any of them, it'll increase the not accepted count, and that represents someone not being accepted to any school. So for the fourth report, what we want to do is we want to know the average mark of each student in each course. However, but before we start into this calculation, what we want to do first is we convert it from a horizontal format into a vertical format, which will help us in the calculation. And we want to know the average performance of the student in each class that they were assigned to. And this is important because it'll allow the professor to tailor, for example, the math course. If the math average is low, that tells the professor then they need to take a look at the structure of the math course. Or for example, if biology is too high, maybe the course structure is too easy and we need to look into it again. And that's why this fourth report is important to us. So at the start of the program, as my colleagues has explained, we introduced several limitations into the passwords. Here you can see the examples in action. So the first example, we only have letters, and that was rejected because it didn't meet the full requirements. The full requirements is we need uppercase, we need numbers, and we need special cases. Second example, we can see there is more than 3 numbers, and that brings us back to the requirements. There's only 3 numbers per password, and so on. You can see that the third example was rejected because it was an uppercase. The next example was rejected because it was using more than 1 special character. However, at the last one, we can see the password fully matches the required specifications in the code. So for the next limitations we have is the number of students. As per the requirements mentioned, it cannot be 0 and it cannot be more than 50. And as you can see on the left, we put in 0, the program rejected it. We put in 51 and the program rejected as well. However, if you put in a number between 1 and 49, 1 and 50, it will accept it. You can see on the right here, we put in 10 students and the program continued fine without a problem, and it continued on. And the following slide, you can see again the program is working. It's asking us to place the grades for each student, and you'll do it one by one as you place the marks for each class and student. So as you can see here, these are the reports at the end of the program. The first report will give us the student name and which school they were assigned to. And as you can see, it goes on student by student. If someone was not accepted to a school, it will mention that they're not accepted. And based on grades, it will assign them to a different school, for example, law or business or engineering. So report 2, which will give us the distribution. Here it will tell us how many students were accepted into all the different schools. As you can see, 1 engineering, 4 in business, 3 in law, and report not accepted students are 2. And when we move on to report 4, it gives us the average grades of the students in each program, which will help the professor to tailor their course for the next semester. And finally, we have the GPA for each student calculated as it lists them one by one.